The Supreme Court's upholding of President Trump's ban on travel from several countries is about politics, not religion.
The Supreme Court decision on the travel ban is a blow to religious liberty.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Welcome. I'm so glad you've joined us for today's program. I think you're going to enjoy today's topic. Thank you for tuning in. Now we're going to have our panelists introduce themselves, tell us who they are and a little bit about what they do. Let's begin with the gentleman to my right.
I am Bishop Michael Olson, and I am the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
I am Canon John Peterson. I am an Episcopal priest, canonically resident of the Diocese of Washington, D.C.
I'm Tom Plumley. I'm the senior minister at First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas. Our congregation is a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
I'm Andrea Luxton. I'm president of Andrews University in Berrien Springs, Michigan, which is affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
My name is Mel Robeck. I'm senior professor of church history and ecumenics and special assistant to the president for ecumenical relations at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California. I am also a minister with the Assemblies of God.
Hi, I'm Carl Trovall. I'm the Richard J. Dinda Professor of Lutheran Identity and Mission at Concordia University in Austin, Texas.
Well, thank you so very much, all of you, for being here today. Looking forward to this discussion. As we always do when we gather around this table, it's going to be an interesting time. I think you'll enjoy this. Let's get right to our subject, shall we? In June 26, 2018, the Supreme Court of the United States upheld President Trump's ban on travel to the U.S. from several countries. The ban followed closely on the president's 2016 campaign declarations that Muslims should be kept from entering the country. So the measure was quickly tagged as Trump's Muslim travel ban. All the countries in the original version of the ban have heavily Muslim majority populations. After rejection in several lower courts, the ban added one or two non-Muslim majority countries to the list. The administration calls the ban an attempt to fight terrorism. Most of the lower federal courts still found the policy to be an unconstitutional infringement on the free exercise of religion. However, in its final ruling, the Supreme Court majority found the ban to be well within the president's broad discretion to suspend the entry of aliens into the country. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice Roberts noted the campaign statements of candidate Trump and his spokespeople, as well as statements made since he took office. However, Roberts stated these were of no probative value and found the travel ban itself neutral on its face regarding religion, and statements by this particular president, notwithstanding, found that the authority of the presidency itself to control immigration and protect the country was the deciding factor. The court's four dissenters took the unusual step of reading their dissents from the bench. Chief among them was Justice Sotomayor's statement that the majority ignored the facts of the case, misconstrued legal precedent, and established that one religion could hereafter be singled out for hostile treatment. Constitutional scholar Lawrence Tribe stated that the majority was blind to the anti-Muslim animus. None of the three iterations of the policy could conceal Washington Post writer Michelle Borstein, who quoted in an article she wrote this statement: "We have to start asking questions about whether this court is committed to religious liberty or to Christian liberty." Now, today I would like our panelists to consider this subject and these three questions in particular. First, does the simple fact that the affected countries have Muslim majorities make the law a Muslim ban? The second question, what will be the primary outcome of this decision? a win in the war on terror, or an expansion of the power of the presidency, or a defeat for religious liberty? And finally, does the president now have the right and power to harm a particular religious group if he or she has the desire to do so? Those are the questions I have asked our panelists to consider, and that is our subject for today. Let's return now to Dr. Luxton. You made an opening statement. Could you please tell us more of your thoughts on this subject, please?
Yes, certainly. When I look at this travel ban, it seems to me that underlying it all is political expediency. You know, I am myself an immigrant. I hold a green card. I work in a university setting where 20% of our students are international students. So it's something that I live with all the time, looking at students coming in and out and dealing with immigration issues. And, you know, on the surface, this seems to be a response to terrorism, etc. And I think to some degree that is right. But when you look at the countries that are identified, it seems to me to be an easy win, an easy hit. And I'm not really sure that, you know, one of the questions we asked was what will be the primary outcome of this decision? A win in the war on terror? To that my answer would be no. Expansion of the power of the president? I think no. Or a defeat for religious liberty? I would say no. I think what is the impact of this? I think it is a way of responding to the outcry from people who are really looking at the Islam community as the problem. So I think it's kind of a response to that, but I don't think it is an intent to specifically ban all Muslims. Because if there was an intent in that direction, the ban would look very different. It would look to other countries, it would look to other situations, not to the group that have been chosen.
All right, thank you very much, Reverend Plumley. You also made an opening statement. Could you please elaborate that statement, please?
Sure. And I thank Dr. Luxton for making it plain that the ban was plainly aimed at Muslims.
Is that what I said?
Yes. I want to go down the road that Justice Sotomayor went down in her dissent in the case. She quoted the majority in the wedding cake case. The same majority, the same people on the court had set a precedent of taking outside commentary by public officials as indications of the real reason behind a particular governmental act. And they took that as probative evidence of the act's denial of religious liberty. In that particular case, they quoted the majority quoted several statements by a minor public official in Colorado who said that this is plainly this effort by this fellow to not the decision by this guy to not make a cake for a same-sex wedding is plainly because his faith doesn't allow him to recognize same-sex marriages, and we want to work against that, and therefore we're going to have we're going to say that this guy was wrong. And the Supreme Court then said that is evidence of the animus of Colorado in making the decision that they did administratively. And then on this case, the court refused to say that that a public official's campaign comments, particularly, specifically the campaign for the President of the United States, where he specifically says that Muslims should be discriminated against. He specifically says Muslims should be kept out of the country. that had no probative value in determining the meaning or the effect of this travel ban. So Justice Sotomayor caught the majority at their own game and called them out on it. And that's why I think that this is a blow for religious liberty, because it was plainly about saying that Muslims don't have quite the rights that everybody else does.
Right, thank you. Let's come down the table. Dr. Trovall, your comments, please.
I think it also is a blow to religious liberty in this sense that, and I think we've seen this in other cases as well. When you have someone who has executive authority or any kind of significant authority, and they make statements to the effect that you just said, Tom, to me, the effect is it gives permission in the society to shut down Muslims in a variety of ways. Even though it's an external issue, I realize it's about people coming into the country, its internal effect is that it creates a social culture that then limits the ability of a free practice of religion or to be, I mean, I'll give you an example. We had a play at Concordia where we had someone dressed up as a Muslim woman. She went over to the coffee shop across from the university in Austin, and she was in line, and someone said, "Back of the line, Taliban," told her right there, and she wasn't even Muslim. She was just dressed as a Muslim, and she had this experience. And I imagine that goes on every single day. And I don't like it that there's this permission to just whitewash or stereotype a whole group of people. And its cumulative effect is a denial of religious liberty.
All right, thank you. Dr. Robeck, your thoughts, please.
I'm going to take another position here, in part because I agree with Andrea that this is largely politically motivated and not largely religiously oriented. I really do think that's the case. I don't think our current president is religious in any way, shape, or form, certainly not in any way I can recognize. I think he uses religion as a tool to get his way about certain kinds of things because he believes certain people believe in a certain way. Second thing I'd like to say is that I think that it's too bad that Muslims are the primary people involved in terror these days. At least terror that runs a risk of being done to American citizens abroad or here in this country. I know that the Hindus are doing these things. I know that Buddhists are doing it, but they're not targeting Americans. And that's an issue. I mean, that's a real issue. And I think it's not Islam per se. I mean, I have a number of Muslim friends. I go to a couple of Muslim doctors. I wouldn't trust them if I thought they were going to do something to my body that I didn't want them to do, you know. But the fact of the matter is, it is the Muslim community in which these terrorists are rising. So what do you do as president to protect the people of the United States? I don't know what you do. You don't say, okay, all Muslims are not acceptable here. You have to say, can we work with the Muslim community to isolate these people? Can they do their own correcting? I don't know. Thirdly, I think that as much as we'd like the Supreme Court or any other court to be objective and fair, none of them is. There is no justice in this world, as far as I'm concerned. We come close to it in some instances, but I can guarantee you, we hear a lot of this about this court's too conservative. We don't want this president to do another conservative. We'll have a whole generation of conservative things. What would happen if we had 3 more liberals? It would be exactly the same, and we would just have a different set of people complaining about what's going on. So what we need is a whole change of mentality here, a mentality about how to be fair in the justice system, how to protect the country, how to speak to people of other religious orientations, and how to help people understand and separate out issues of religion versus politics.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Canon Peterson, your thoughts on the subject, please.
Yeah, so I am certainly siding on the side of the issues of religious liberty here. And I want to be able to make some comments about the Roberts ruling that he said, particularly when he spoke about the travel ban itself is neutral on its face. I don't see anything neutral on its face in relationship to the travel ban. It was certainly in the context. We have to, I think, also see it in the context of how come it became a Muslim ban in the very beginning, and that is certainly is because of the president's words and the way in which the president speaks about Muslims in this country. And the very first travel ban, we cannot deny that it was all Muslim countries. The second travel ban was all Muslim countries. And finally they caught on, well, if we throw in a couple non-Muslim countries, this will get past the Supreme Court. To me, it's not neutral on its face, because we certainly have here a situation in which the president's intent from the very beginning, one of the first executive orders that he published was the Muslim ban. And so consequently, it seems to me that they're really cutting something extremely fine if you're simply looking at one of the documents and say, okay, well, this one finally made it past the litmus test. And it's no different, it's no more than that. So to talk about it being mutual on its face is really a scam.
All right, thank you. Bishop Olson.
The second question there, I think it's all of the three. I think in some ways it is a win in the war on terror, at least a small one. I think it is the expansion of the power of the presidency, which is concerning, not just because of this president, but just in principle for the way our nation is constitutionally set up. And I think it is a defeat for religious liberty. With that said, I think there's some other questions, though. Absent from this ban is Saudi Arabia, which has a much stronger history, at least, of terrorism and terroristic attacks on this country, as well as sources of funding. And there's been no talk of that whatsoever. I think the president did campaign, and had strong inflammatory remarks with regard to this issue, which also neglects the reality of terrorism within Islam. And we hear very few Islamic voices on this, at least in this country we do. And also to really, this also calls an opportunity for the Islamic world to take seriously the religious rights of minorities in their own country, where they are majority population, like Saudi Arabia, like Lebanon, like Syria, like Jordan, and not to mention the African nations as well, where some of those conflicts are also much more heavily from traditional tribal disagreements and hatreds than necessarily formally religious.
All right, thank you very much. Reverend Plumley, you had another comment?
Sure, I just wanted to question a statement of fact that Mel made a while ago about where terrorism in the United States is coming from. The vast majority of terrorist acts in the United States have been committed by Americans, period. They're not people coming into this country to do this. So a travel ban of any sort is not going to affect them.
So Dr. Robeck, you want to respond to that?
There are at least as many white nationalist, neo-Nazi, Christian.
We're just down to a few seconds. Let's have Dr.
I question whether
Robeck.
they're Christian, just like I question whether these terrorists are really Muslim, you know.
Correct.
But they come from that particular community. You know, I think it's always easier to label the person from outside than it is to label the person from inside. And we have seen that some of these immigrants, especially Somalians and so forth, up in Minnesota, I think they have stopped a number of things, and there have been a number of them that left to fight with ISIS. So, I think it's not an either or; it's a both and. And I think we have to be against all of these kinds of terrorist-related people.
All right, Dr. Luxon, we just have a few moments remaining.
Yeah, I'd like to refer back to something Carl said, because while I said I think this was based on political expediency, I do agree that the implications of this, or the effect of this on the community, is to increase the negative attitude towards Islam. I do agree with that, and I think that is problematic. But I would also agree that I don't know that terrorism at least in the United States, I think it'd be very hard to objectively say it's largely due to Islamic population. I don't think we have that evidence at all, but it feels that way. It feels that way, and I think that's what the travel ban is responding to. Is that feeling?
All right, thank you. That's all the time we have for this part of the program. There is an important message I'd like for you to stand by to listen to. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you, Mark, and I do look forward to hearing from you. We get letters postmarked from places all over this nation, and we get messages from around the world via the internet and other means of communication. Sometimes there are criticisms, sometimes there are praises, other times there are suggestions for programs. It all is good, and we look forward to hearing from you, so thank you so much for tuning in and for communicating with us. Now let's go to our summary statements. For that, let's begin with Bishop Olson. You're first.
I think we have to acknowledge the religious overtones of terrorism as well as the response to terrorism in its contemporary form. I think, though, a travel ban needs to be articulated with reasons that are beyond just simply religious identification. Why these nations? Why not other nations? Where are the sources of terrorism? And then how is this a part of a larger strategy against terrorism? Otherwise, it's too broad-brushed to appeal to people's fears.
All right, thank you very much. And now, Reverend Plumley, your summation, please.
Yes, it's broad-brushed in order to appeal to people's fears, and that's quite correct. Again, my major concern with what the court did was that it went against its own precedent. It plainly is of probative value to look at the statements that the person who made this governmental act had previously made, and to see that those who practice Islam as their faith were discriminated against in this effort.
All right, thank you. Dr. Robeck, your summary, please.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I'm coming out against this ban or for this ban. I mean, I didn't think it was a good idea to begin with. Because I do think that it's really a political attempt to respond to fears that have been raised by politicians about certain people around the world. But as I was thinking about this on the plane just yesterday, I was thinking about our Statue of Liberty, which has this wonderful invitation to give us all of their poor and oppressed people. And certainly around the world, we have lots of places where this oppression has taken place in recent years. I think of Syria as one critical example where we basically stood back and said, hands off, we'll come in and scoop up whatever's left, but it's not our issue. But in fact, it is our issue. And I do think that we probably are hurting as a result of that. But it seems to me that we need to take more forceful action to clarify what it is we're doing. As long as we can say to NFL players, you can't kneel or you can't sit when we do the national anthem, then we've already gone against the First Amendment, and I think we're in trouble as a nation if we can't do that and we can't provide compassion for people who are hurting. We're in trouble.
All right, thank you very much. And now, Dr. Trovall, your summation, please.
I like Andrea, I want to distinguish intent and results. I agree with you that it's political motivation to create fear. The results, however, is a defeat for religious liberty. And I really don't even know if it's a win on the war of terror, because I think what it does is it creates now a new climate in which people feel aggrieved, and then they have the potential of acting out on that aggrievement. And it actually makes us less secure, not more secure.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Luxton, your summation.
I don't know how we do it, but I think we have to change the paradigm somewhat. You know, my home, you know, I come from the UK. I was there around this time of the attacks there in London and Birmingham a year ago. And I watched the way the community responded, and it was very different. There was a very clear delineation between radical Islam and the Islam community as a whole. And there was a sense of the community itself gathering together to say, this is our problem, what is our solution? And there was an attempt not to alienate a certain group as a result of it. And I think that bringing people around a table to kind of say, what is our joint solution, and involving the combination of all faiths in that conversation is really critical. And I'm not sure we're there with the United States at this point, you know.
Thank you.
And I'd like to see us how we get there.
Thank you. Now, Canon Peterson, your summation, please.
At the General Convention of the Episcopal Church, that is our governing body of our church in this country, that met in Austin in 2018, they passed the resolution dealing with this, and I want to, on behalf of my church, read it. Behold, that the 79th General Convention decries the use of expression of explicit racial malice and racially coded language with discriminatory intent on the part of political leaders, and be it further resolved that this convention expresses its dismay at the statements expressing animosity and fear towards Muslims that have pervaded political discourse in the United States in recent years.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for today's participation on the program. And thank you for tuning in, viewing, watching this edition of the American Religious Town Hall meeting. We're always glad to welcome you and look forward to you being here next time. As you see, the panelists might not always disagree, but they do it in a very agreeable way. And they might not always agree, but do it in a very agreeable way as well. And thank you for that so much. And for now, the charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And so now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.